The other thing that was a lot more common back then was to just pick up the phone. And I think because we do it a lot less often now, that we've started paying less attention to this as marketers.
This is the B2B Performance Marketing Podcast by Webmarketer, here to help you make the right moves with your B2B advertising. No spin, no smoke and mirrors, just honest insights from the advertising front line. If you're watching this on video, you might be wondering why there's a small army of teacups behind me with funny strings sticking out of them. Next summer, me and my partner Angharad are getting married in my parents' field after 20 years together. And she just had a crafts weekend with her bride squad making homemade candles infused with citronella to keep the bugs away. So that explains it. Anyway, back to topic. I was speaking with my dad yesterday about the evolution of email. So he started his career in a world where inbox and outbox trays were the norm. You'd receive memos into your inbox tray on your desk, and if you wanted to message someone, you'd write up a memo yourself and pop it in your outbox tray, and then a clerk would come around and deliver it for you. But nowadays, since the advent of email and especially instant messaging, it's become way easier to send a quick message, and so we do it way more often.
The other thing that was a lot more common back then was to just pick up the phone. And I think because we do it a lot less often now, that we've started paying less attention to this as marketers. And an interesting thing for me is that every time we run a discovery call with a client and we ask them what their close rate is from a web form, the answers here will typically range between 10% and 20%. But then when I ask them what their close rate is on an inbound call, usually it's at least double or even triple that.
Yeah, pretty much without fail, inbound phone calls will be the next top converting channel after trusted referrals. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. Going back a number of years now, I worked on a campaign where we were targeting senior professionals in the legal industry. It's worth mentioning that the main objective was to drive applications for a job vacancy, so the conversion was pretty high commitment. Now, it was a really well set up Google search ads campaign, even if I do say so myself, but the conversion tracking was good, the keywords were high intent, there was plenty of search volume, and the landing page was good too. But barely any submissions were coming through the application form, so the client was getting more and more concerned and frustrated over time. And it was really strange because all the signs were there, all the data was suggesting that the campaign should be converting. And so on a call, I had the idea to ask if people had been phoning in, and the client confirmed that the phone lines had been really, really busy. And that was a real penny drop moment for me. People wanted to speak to someone before making a decision, and they'd actually convert on the call rather than online. Our theory was that the application was just too high commitment when they had loads of questions left unanswered. And that was a really big learning for me because we always think about web forms as like the primary conversion. But if the person that you want to target would rather phone than fill in a form, well, that should be your primary conversion.
So inbound phone calls are actually really underrated. And when so many businesses are hiding away the phone numbers on their websites and moving away from taking calls, then this can actually be a really big opportunity. Talking specifically about Google Ads, you can run call ads that display a phone number instead of a web link. Now, call ads are actually being phased out, and it's estimated that you won't be able to create new ones after February 2026, and that they'll stop running entirely a year later. They can be hit or miss, but if you are going to try it, you should try it now. You can use call assets, which used to be called call extensions. And also, Google actually has free call tracking technology called calls from website conversions, where, like the name implies, you can track calls from your website. You set it to fire on all page views, and where it recognizes that a click came from Google Ads, then it will take the number that people see on the site and dynamically replace it with a tracking number. As a quick tip, we actually make phone numbers unclickable on our landing pages. The reason being that if someone dials the number that they see on the site, then this will be tracked. But if they click on that number, it will dial the number that's hidden behind it in the link, which is actually the original one, and so it won't be tracked. Remember, the aim is to track completed phone calls, not just clicks to a number. At Webmarketer, we actually don't use click to email or click to call as a primary conversion. The reason for this is that the percentage of people that actually end up emailing and phoning through is so small. On that note, we also find that the quality of calls is often way better when people phone through from the website than straight from the ad, although this is not always the case. When you're setting up calls from website conversions, you can actually set the minimum duration that that call needs to last before it gets counted as a conversion. We set this to 60 seconds by default, but if you're finding that you want better quality from your calls, then you should set the threshold higher. We've actually set it as high as 5 minutes before. This is just to ensure that we're getting the best quality inquiries. There's also a little known setting in Google Ads where you can enable phone call recording. Phone calls get stored for 30 days so that you can go back and gauge the quality of those calls and make any changes as needed. If you want to enable this, then head to Account Settings and Call Reporting.
So yeah, tracking calls at the ad conversion level is really important. But while it fixes one knowledge gap, it also creates a couple more. Because you can now see which keywords, campaigns, and ads were driving calls, how many, how they lasted, but you can't see what happens next. You can't look at your CRM and quickly see which deals came from phone calls generated by ads or whether they turned into actual customers. Some of our clients try to bridge that gap by using dedicated phone numbers for their ads. And while that does give a great level of extra insight, it does mean that someone needs to manually log which calls came from ads in their CRM. For some other clients, we run a weekly export of the call details report, which you can find in the Google Ads report editor. This gives you a list of all of the phone calls generated from your ads, along with which phone number they came from and how long the calls lasted. All of this goes into a shared Google Sheet, and once a week, the clients take that data and use it to update the deal sources in their CRM. This all goes into a shared Google Sheet, and the client takes that data and uses it to update the deal sources in their CRM. So they get more visibility again, but we're still not avoiding that manual work. Our preferred option is always to use third-party call tracking software. So at WebMarketer, we typically use CallRail, but we know lots of our friends out in the industry swear by what converts, and there are loads of other options out there too.
Yeah, great points. So let's unpack that a little bit. With call tracking software, to put it simply, you've got two options. You can create dedicated numbers to track each of your marketing channels individually, and you can use dynamic tracking on your website to track the source of your calls from ads and organic traffic without having to create additional numbers. With both options, you can create new deals or update deal sources in your CRM, but sometimes you might need a little help from automation tools like Zapier. All of this gives you a triple threat: call conversions in your ad platform, call events by traffic source in your Google Analytics, and inbound phone call deals by source in your CRM.
As always, let's wrap the episode up with the key takeaways. After referrals, inbound phone calls are probably going to be your top converting lead source, so they deserve to be tracked properly. Use Google's free calls from website conversion tracking to measure inbound phone calls and set your call duration threshold to target quality. Run call detail reports and enable call recording for more insights on the calls you're getting from your ads. And finally, to get the most data for the least amount of work, bring in third-party call tracking software. Remember, the real value isn't just in knowing how many people called, it's in being able to measure the full journey from click to call to customer.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. It really helps us out. And if you'd like us to cover a specific topic, then please head to webmarketeruk.com/topic and let us know what you'd like us to run through. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.